Empire. If you're looking to be inspired, sit back and listen to this episode because it's going to give you goosebumps. What's up, everybody? It's Mike Jones. Thanks for coming back for another episode of the Football Jones podcast. Our guest today is Ron Rivera, and I just got done talking to him, and I got to tell you, I've got goosebumps. I was getting emotional just listening to him, what he's gone through, and hearing all that. It's no wonder that Washington has defied the odds, won their division, and are now hosting a playoff game. It doesn't make sense, but when you hear him talk and imagine being a player, sitting in his meetings and watching the way he battled cancer this year, there's no way these guys were going to lay down on him, and that's why they are in the position they are in, because of the way Ron lives his life, the way he leads. And I'm telling you, if you don't feel something after this episode, you aren't human. You're a robot. So I'm not going to talk anymore. Let's just get to it with Ron Rivera right now. I appreciate you doing this.
That's fine. Now, and just so you know, Sean hands me a lot of stuff to read, and he showed me that you told him, "Hey, wow, you guys made it." I guess I was wrong. I appreciate that.
I really did not expect this at all. And when you talked about it early in the year, I was like, okay.
You know what's interesting, and to be honest with you, when things started to happen and we were sitting there at 1-3, and really, one of the things that I try to do is I try to keep an eye on the division. I really do. I pay attention to it. If something's happening out there, I'll watch tape. And as I was watching tape on Dallas and New York, I kind of felt, man, they're going to struggle this year. They've got issues. Dallas right away started having injuries.
Right.
Okay. The Giants, new coaching staff, a new style, new way of doing things. And I thought, okay, offensively, they're going to struggle. The Giants, I give them credit. They really developed their defense. And, man, those guys they're a good defensive unit. But Dallas, with all the injuries and then Dak getting hurt, and I thought, we got to take a shot and see what happens. And I did it more so because, Dwayne was struggling, and the other 52 guys had to be developed.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? To watch our young wide receivers get opportunities, our young tight end situation, our running back, I had to do what I did. And the only slight to Dwayne was he was young. He didn't have the normal OTAs. I tried to create that by every snap he took in training camp for 7 weeks was with the ones.
Right.
Never took a snap with the twos. And then for 4 weeks, I gave him every practice snap. I gave him every opportunity. And that was kind of the plan, to be honest, going into it, is that if we didn't have a training camp, normal training camp, Dwayne needed every snap to find out. And that's kind of where I was and why I made the decision I did.
Gotcha. Now, you when you said you looked at everybody and everybody had issues, you guys did have issues too, but what was it about your issues that you felt like they weren't insurmountable issues?
Because I looked at our defense first, and the way the front was coming together, I felt pretty confident about that group of guys. Offensively, I liked our offensive line unit. I thought those guys were starting to gel earlier than expected because we ran the ball effectively early on, which I think is a big component to winning in this league. You have to be able to run it fairly well. To expect to win in this league, throwing 40 times, that to me is you're expecting way too much. And I thought we could run the ball successfully, and I think that would help lead to winning football games. I did. And maybe I'm an overly optimistic guy, which I've been told, especially by the Carolina media back in the day. But that's just the way I look at things. And that's part of, what I have to do as a head coach is find the optimism. And that's why I was optimistic.
Right. Now, where do you think you first got that sense of optimism that kind of shaped you, that formed that? Because some people are pessimistic, some people are kind of in the middle. Where did you get your optimism from in life?
Because I think I get a good sense and a good handle and a good feel for players. Okay. When I was with Andy Reid back in 1999 and 2000, grading players like we do as coaches, I had a tendency my players were always graded a little bit higher. Okay. And I think it was 2001. It was our third year when we started winning games with Andy on a consistent basis. Or my second year, excuse me, it was our second year. And Andy's told me, hey, Ron, can you hold up a second? I said, sure. So everybody had stepped out. It was just Andy and I in the coach's meeting room. He says, you look at the board. He says, you notice anything about the board, the grades? And I look and I said, yeah. I said, there's a lot of low grades. He goes, your grades are pretty high. I said, Coach, I think I grade him the way I look at him. I mean, I am an optimistic guy. I said, but you look at these grades here, Coach. We won this game, and I'm trying to remember the game, but we won it pretty handily. And we had like 400 yards of total offense. We rushed for over 100 yards. And I said, for us to have been that successful and do the things that we did, Coach, I think those grades are kind of low. And he looked at me and he says, okay, I get it. And so he always took my grades with a grain of salt. I was going to be higher because that's the way I looked at things. It didn't mean, that my grades are better than anybody's. It just meant now Andy understood me. That I look at it maybe with rose-colored glasses on, but that's the way I look at it, and that's the way I'm going to be, because I just think that, I prefer the optimistic approach. I'm going to find something positive to coach off of, to preach. And if you ever hear me say, we suck, we are just effing terrible, then it's time for me to go, because then I've given up all hope. And I will not do that. I just look at things in a positive fashion. And I will say this on a personal note, I think that's what helped me through my cancer treatments this year, that I didn't want to know the negative. I didn't, when they told me this is what you have, right, and this is the treatment you're going to get, and this is the medicine we're giving you, okay, I didn't go and Google all that to find out exactly what that meant. I did what the doctors told me. This was my regimen. And what was interesting about this was afterwards, recently, I was reading this book, and this book described one of the medicines that I'm taking, and they call my medicine a platinum, which means it has platinum in it to help create the medicine to be what it is. And then as you read more, you find out that this particular medicine they gave me is a very powerful drug, and part of its job is to kill. It's to kill specific cells, bad cells in your body. Unfortunately, there's going to be collateral damage. Mm-hmm. But that's the chance we take when you take these cancer medicines, okay, especially chemotherapy, especially platinums, especially this particular one called cisplatin that I took. When I looked it up while I was reading this book, it said this was a powerful drug that I took, and I didn't realize it. I didn't want to know it. I didn't want to know. That's why I felt sicker than a dog at times. I just wanted to know that what they were giving me was going to make me better. That's the only thing I wanted to know.
Gotcha. Now, were your parents optimistic like that?
Yes. Okay. My father, even though my father was in the military, he's an optimistic dude. He always found the good in things, in situations, and circumstances. My mother wanted to bring out the good, okay, to the point where she believed practice made better. And when my dad was in Vietnam and one of us or any of us or all of us were struggling in a sport, we'd come home from practice, baseball, mom pitched batting practice for us. She got up on the mound, and, the four boys would be out there, three guys would be shagging, and one would be at bat at the plate. And she pitched, and that was just the way we did things. We, If something was bad, we worked to make it better.
Uh-huh. So as a coach, you have to, I understand your optimism, but you also have to be a realist. So how do you find the balance there? Because you have to make tough decisions sometimes.
Yes.
And, you got to know when to cut bait, and we've seen you do that. How do you find the balance?
I think by being honest with yourself, first and foremost. One of my favorite things that I've learned over the period of time as a head coach is that you have to tell people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. Okay. And because what happens is eventually, if you do the other, you're telling people they want to hear, you're going to have to break their hearts. And so as you go through this, I think you have to find the truth, tell them, coach from that perspective, but you also always have to remember at some point, you're going to have to make a tough decision. The other thing that I've had to do, and I learned it, is that you can delegate the authority, but you have to make sure they know what the standard is, because you may tell them, hey, okay, you're in charge of this. But if you never tell them I'm expecting this level, all right, what they do may not get to that level, but did you tell them I want that level? Because if you didn't, you as the leader have to go back and say, hey, look, we got to raise it to this level. This is the level I want. If you never tell them that, to have to go back and fire somebody, then you messed up. I learned that from Andy Reid, because I said to Coach, when I asked Coach one time, I said, Coach, you've never had to get rid of anybody. I said, what is it that you do? He said, Ron, what I always do is make sure everybody knows what I expect of them. And if I haven't told you, then that's on me. I thought, wow. And I've never forgot that. I've always tried to make sure everybody knew what I expected of them.
Gotcha. So what are you telling? You've got a young team, and we've seen historically young teams the first time in the playoffs, it's different. Their eyes are wider. It's a different game, and they get the pants beat off of them, but they grow from it. But what do you tell your guys here this week with your optimism, but with your balance? What are your expectations?
Well, what's interesting about this is, when right around the time when I made my little declaration about, hey, I'm going to take our shot, we'll see what happens, is that I counted at one time, we had 28 young guys contributing to this team, playing meaningful minutes, not at the end of the game, 3 or 4 minutes here. I'm talking about first quarter, second quarter, third quarter minutes. And so we're growing, and we're growing a little bit faster than I had anticipated, because I didn't know how many guys we were going to play. But we've played a lot of young guys. And what happened is, when that little declaration I made at week 5, those games all meant something that, hey, we got a chance for the play. We got a chance to win the division, man. We're competing. So we had something to shoot for every day, all the way to the last game. The last game meant something to us.
Right.
Okay. I didn't have to say, well, I'm going to play this guy to find out about him. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there were some teams that did that. There were some teams that clinched, that they pulled their starters after the first quarter. Okay. And what's crazy is the teams they were playing against still had something to play with, but they didn't have to. But we did. Everything we did, we had to do. So every week, these guys showed up. They did the extra things because there was something on the line. Now, I hope when there's nothing on the line, we still do that. But right now, everything was on the line. So tell our guys, this is opportunity. Doesn't mean, we made it. No, it means, hey, let's keep fighting and see what else happens. So that next year, hey, looking ahead, we have guys that have meaningful minutes, that have played meaningful snaps, that next year, when we start the season, it shouldn't be a big deal. You know what I'm saying? It shouldn't be too big for them. It should be exactly what we expect it to be. Let's go out and compete, and let's get better. That's going to be the approach. That's going to be the thing that we'll talk about. So today, when we have our team meeting, is that, hey, guys, this is an opportunity for us to grow. And nothing says it has to end here. So we'll see what happens.
Gotcha. Now, your team in Carolina that rebounded from that slow start, won the division with a losing record, got into the playoffs. What was that game like? And then what growth did you see from your guys that next year?
What was interesting was it was week 13. We had just gotten drubbed by Minnesota. And what happened in the about in the middle of third quarter, fourth quarter, I told our coaches, put these young guys in. Play this guy, play this guy, play this guy, put them out there. And for about a quarter and a half, we competed with them snap for snap. Okay, and that was the year Minnesota made the playoffs. They were a good football team, but we were with them right there, snap to snap to snap, that last portion of the game. And so the next week I told the guys, hey, let's play these guys, let's play these guys, let's play these guys. And we cut 3 veteran guys because they were in the way of these young guys. And so the last 4 games of the year, we were playing young guys that competed, that flew around, that didn't know any better. And we got into the playoffs because nobody ran away with the division. And I told the guys, hey, we got a chance. We control our destiny. If we don't win, we don't get in. And we won 4 games in a row. The right things happened. Okay, the New Orleans lost the games they needed to lose. Atlanta lost the games they needed to lose. We beat both those teams. That gave us a chance to get into the playoffs. And it came down to the last game of the year, us against Atlanta. The winner goes to the playoffs. And that's what we did. We won.
And then from your guys having gone through that, the next year you guys took a big leap.
Yes, because for the last 4 weeks of the season, it was win or go home. And we won, and then we got beat in Seattle in the playoffs. But we got to that round. Okay, we were a game away from the NFC Championship game. And I think our guys the next year just said, man, we don't want to go home early. We want to compete. And that's what happened.
What do you have any memorable face-offs with Bruce Arians?
Oh, every time we play him, it's a competition. It's a battle. I got tremendous respect for who he is, for the way he does things, for his teams. He has fun also. That's the other thing. He makes this fun. To compete with Coach is fun. Now he and I are have been on several committees together. Even in those committee meetings, there's the right kind of attitude, the right kind of spirit. And I think that's important because, you know, in today's world, things so serious, you know, we still play a game and we're still trying to win. But, you know, there's also an element of enjoyment that we should still take from it, win or lose, you know, because we have a good opportunity, I think, to set the tone and tempo for a lot of things.
Gotcha. Lastly, you guys have just a huge 2 inspirational stories, you and then Alex Smith. What has it been like for you to watch him go out there and battle what he does and to lead like he does and play and perform at this level?
I think it's cool as hell. I really do mean that. And the reason I say that is for everything he's gone through and everything that he's done, if this is the guy that he's always been, that's an amazing thing because he's been that steady, consistent personality and he wants it. And what's happened, Mike, and I find this really cool, and I've said this a couple of times this week, and I've said it about Chase, and I did say it about Alex. They love playing the game. All Alex wanted to do was come back and play the game that he loved for whatever his personal reasons were. My conversations with him have always been about, you know, if you can show me you can protect yourself and you go out and play, I want you to play. And so when we started camp, you know, I was kind of hesitant to just put it all on him. It had to be a progression, you know, he had to work to getting back to playing football. And each practice, each week, each opportunity was a step forward. To the point, though, with about 17 days, I think, left back in camp, 2.5 weeks left, he came to me and told me he wanted more. And I said, okay, so let me get Scott and Kenny Zampese in here and we can talk about it. So we get him in and we start talking. And Alex starts talking about how he wants more. He's got to know. He doesn't know. He says, I don't know enough. I want more so I know that I can make it and I can come back. And I said, really? He said, yes, I want it. I need it. And everything I've seen, you can see he was progressing. I said, okay. So after he left, I told those coaches, let's put him in those situations. Let's create opportunities. So now we started putting him in. It wasn't 100% live, but it was pretty close. And guys were closing in on him. Guys were falling at his feet. He was having to move out of the way to protect himself. He had to throw the ball, dump the ball, stand tall in the pocket. He did it. Each day, it got more and more and more to where I realized he deserved it. He earned it. And that's what he wanted, was that. Now, he was our third guy, but always in the back of my mind, I said, God, he's going to get a chance. So he kept doing his work. I made the decision I did. I elevated him to number 2. And then lo and behold, Kyle gets hurt and he has to play the rest of the Rams game. And then eventually against the Giants, unfortunately, Kyle breaks his ankle. But now it's Alex. And Alex got his chance, got his opportunity. And it's an amazing story. It's that thing that here's that guy that just wanted it so bad and worked at it so much that he earned it, that he deserved to be out there.
Gotcha. I lied. I do have one more. Okay. And I asked Sean, and he said, okay. What was your worst day this year? Everything you went through, and how'd you get through it, and how does it help you now?
It was the Tuesday after my second round of chemo. I got my radiation treatment that morning, got proton therapy, and Stephanie was with me that day. We saw Dr. Deacon, and we talked about, things. And that day, I just progressively started feeling worse and worse. And so it was right around 9:30 in the morning. So what happens, I get up at 5:30. I would, clean up, take my shower, let the water run down my throat, run on my neck, because that's where I was getting all my treatment, and it was soothing. And then we went and got the proton therapy at about 8. No, we got it, that was Tuesday. So we got it earlier, like at around 7:30. And then I had my appointment with Dr. Deacon. I had to give blood that morning too, to get my blood done as well. So Dr. Deacon looked at my blood and told me, hey, look, your white cells are down. You're going to feel a little drained. I forgot what the other marker that was down. So that's going to affect you as well. So as Stephanie drove me over to get my IV therapy here at the facility, I just felt bad. And I felt like the proverbial 300-pound gorilla was on my back. So I went to get out of the car, and I really couldn't get myself out of the car. And it just so happened that Ryan Vermillion, our head trainer, saw me coming, so he came over to help. And I literally had to put my arm on Ryan's shoulder and put my arm around Stephanie. And they walked me into the training room, and we probably had 20, 25 guys in there getting treatment and stuff, and they saw me. And they took me into the back, into the doctor's office, set me up, and I got an IV. When I finished I got 2 bags that day too. That's how depleted I was. Stephanie and Ryan had to help me out to the car, and there was no way I was going to be able to stay and work. So they took me home. Stephanie had to help me up the stairs by herself. I rolled into bed, and I just didn't eat that day. I refused to eat breakfast. I didn't eat lunch, and I wasn't going to eat dinner. I was just going to lay in bed. And Stephanie had called Dr. Casolaro, the team doctor, and he basically got on me about, you've got to eat for your own sake. You've got to get up. And he was pretty harsh about it. So I kind of sat up, and Stephanie got on me about eating. Look, I've made dinner. It's downstairs. It's chicken noodle soup. It's what you wanted. I got some toast for you. It's ready. Let's go. So she helps me downstairs. I sit down, and my daughter, who's living with us right now, because of the pandemic, she moved in with us. She works for us in our social media department. Courtney started basically pleading with me to eat, and I could see her tears were welling up in her eyes, and it was a struggle. And I do tell the story that my dogs, both of them knew I was in trouble, and the big one, the golden retriever, came over and kind of nudged me a little bit, hey, like, come on, you got to eat. And he walked out. So I was sitting there, and I started to try to eat. And as I started to eat, I mean, it was hard to swallow, because you develop these sores from your treatment, from the chemo, from radiation, and to swallow was hard. But I kept eating, and then my little dog, she kept looking at me like, "Come on, you can do it." And so I gave her this piece of toast. Well, she leaves me. So now I'm by myself and I've got to eat. So I kept eating and I kept swallowing and it kept hurting. But I finished the whole bowl of soup. I ate the rest of the toast. I drank my root beer and I went back upstairs and I crawled into bed and I went to sleep. It was about 8:30 when I crawled into bed, and I slept all the way through till 5:30 that morning. So pretty much almost 10, about 9.5 hours of sleep. I got up, I weighed myself. I always weigh myself in the morning before I go to bed. And I went to bed that night at 2:40, and I think I woke up right around 2:32. And I got up and I got it into the shower, and usually what happens is I have this solution that I have to gargle and I spit it out, and then I let the water run into my mouth and I gargle and I let it run on my neck. And it was very soothing and calming. And I could also realize, man, I feel pretty good. And I equated it to the fact that I ate a full meal for the first time in a while. And it just lifted me up. And from that point on, I never got lower than that day, than Tuesday. I think it's like November 12th or something like that, or might have been like November 6th. And that was my low point. But I never got lower than that. It was it was October 6th. I never got lower than October 13th. I never got lower than that day. But that was the lowest point, and it was the worst I felt because I was nauseous, I was dizzy, my throat hurt. But having the people that care about you get on you and show how important it was, I think is what pushed me to eat. And from that point on, Mike, I'll tell you right now, no matter how much it hurt, I ate breakfast, I ate lunch, I ate dinner. And what would happen was I would get up at 5:30. I would get downstairs about 5:50. I would make a shake, a protein shake using chocolate ice cream, almond milk or mocha, a banana, and whatever protein mix my wife had for me. It was terrible, but I drank it. And then I would make a breakfast sandwich for either Stephanie or Courtney, depending on who was taking me to my treatments. And then they would come, they'd eat, we'd get in the car, we'd get there about, we drive, we'd get there about 7:15, do my treatment around between 7:30 and 8, get that done, depending on my doctor visit or not. We would come back here, and my director of operations would have Connor, our chef, would make either 2 pancakes or a waffle, and I would have probably 2 cups of syrup to help, and a Mountain Dew to help me get it down. But I did that, and we did that every day during my treatments. And I'm telling you, and I tell people this, the biggest thing I learned how important it is to eat, because the worst thing you could do is just sit there and wallow in the misery, and I wasn't going to do that. I refused to let that happen. And what's funny about it, Mike, when I was done, both doctors, Dr. Bajaj, my radiologist, Dr. Deacon, my oncologist, both said, man, that's an amazing thing you did. And I said, what are you talking about? They said, well, you only missed 3 days of work, and you made every game. That's an amazing thing. I said, but I thought that's what you told me to do. And because I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want to be that guy that missed all this work that they had to put into the hospital. They had to put a feeding tube in. I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't realize that that it's okay to miss a week, to miss a week in a row. I didn't realize that. I just thought you were supposed to. So I kept pushing myself to get through it. And it turned out to be a blessing. So I'm just so you know, I'm very fortunate. I really am. I really am.
That's fantastic. Well, Coach, I really appreciate your time. I know you're an inspiration to your players, to your family, and to all of us out here as well. And good luck this weekend.
I appreciate it, Mike. And you never know. That's why you show up and play.
That's right. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you
so much.
I am very thankful to Ron Rivera. I am very thankful to Sean from Washington PR, who let me get in that one last question. We had our time allotment coming up, and I texted him, said I wanted to get one more in, and he said go for it. And I'm so glad that Ron told that story of how he got through his toughest day and how it helps him now, because not just from a football standpoint, his example can help people just in their everyday lives. And what we're going through this year, it's crazy, but you just got to keep pushing on. And Ron is a fantastic example of that. We'll see what happens this weekend. As Ron said, you never know. They're going up against Tampa, Tom Brady, Bruce Arians, Hall of Famers. But, I mean, nobody expected this team to be here right now. And we'll see what happens. Stranger things have happened, right? You never know. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. Please do me a favor. Take this episode and share it with some of your friends or family. We talk football, but man, I don't think you even have to be a huge football fan to appreciate what Ron Rivera has gone through. So share this thing on your social media. Take the link, text it to a few friends and family members, and I will talk to you guys again next time.